experience, people who were emotionally neglected as children tend to be some of the biggest intellectualizers in therapy. They tend to be way more comfortable with analytical processing rather than emotional processing. And so, actually, these are often the people who come across as highly self aware in therapy.
Hi friends, I appreciate this video because it actually clearly states how people who have been emotionally neglected show up in therapy. I absolutely love it. But I want to talk about how did he even get there, right? How does emotional abuse or emotional neglect, not abuse, emotional neglect look like? What does it look like? When your child comes to you crying, when your child comes to you feeling hurt, when your child comes to you feeling pain, and you just say shrug it off and keep moving forward. When your child wants to talk to you about how they feel about whatever it is that's going on in their lives, and you tell them get over it, I don't want to hear about it. When your child comes to you with personal issues and personal problems, and feeling really bad about themselves and needing assurance, and you don't have the capacity or even the know-how to say, listen, I understand that you're feeling horrible. Why do you feel about this? Why do you feel that way? How do you feel about this? Why is it important to you? These are just basic questions that you can ask your child so that they don't feel emotionally neglected. Literally ask your child how they feel about certain things while they're children. Help them to be able to process their emotions really younger, as young as possible so that they can be a normal human being. I know for me, a lot of the emotional neglect of any kind would have come from both of, and um, whenever I go to them with problems or issues, shrug it off. You'll be fine. They'll do that same thing. But whenever it is that they had problems and issues, they wanted to talk to me. It was like I was a therapist, but no one actually cared about how I felt about certain situations. And they taught me that early on. They taught me that very, very early on. So I learned to bottle up a lot of things inside. I learned to keep a lot of things to myself. I learned to be really mature really early on and deal with things like a grown woman. I didn't have the emotional support that I would have really needed when I was a child. So it's very difficult for me to express my emotions, even to this day. And I think I'm doing a very good job. This took a lot of years for me to actually be able to do it. It took a lot of years for me to be able to feel comfortable expressing how I feel about certain situations. And still to this day, I don't do so unless unprobed. I really am bottled up. I don't say a word. I don't really complain. It's not really in me, right? But for some odd reason, a lot of other people in my family have this uncanny ability to express how they feel in certain situations. And I don't understand where they got it from, but I wasn't taught it. I'm just doing it right now. But anyhow, please, parents, please, 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 teach your children to be in tune with their emotions. I know probably it's not suitable for this environment here, but if like for them to leave the country or leave this environment to be successful in other spaces and in other places, it's important for them to be in touch with their emotions. Because if they're not in touch with their emotions, then they won't be able to recognize the same emotions in other people. And you'll have a lot of your children pissing people off and not even realizing they're pissing people off. Right? So please, please, because they themselves weren't really in charge or in tune with how they felt about certain situations. And then that also bleeds over into their romantic relationships as well. Because in romantic relationships, men show signs of distress. They show signs, for women actually, if a woman is dating a man will show signs of distress. A man will show signs of pain and hurt and trauma and all that stuff. And as a woman, you're supposed to pick up on that. And if you're dealing with a man who is very in tune with his emotions, he will pick up on whenever it is that you're in pain. And honestly, as a woman, to have a man to have to contextualize or tell you exactly what it is that your feelings are, it's a very stressful job for him, and it adds more work to his life. So if you have children, please make sure that they are capable of managing or expressing their own emotions on their own so that they'll be able to actually stand and be a partner to anybody and actually work well with people in certain spaces. People have real feelings. And I heard that as a child, but I didn't understand it because a lot of my emotions were neglected by the same people who was telling me people have feelings. So it made no sense until I got older and I tried to have romantic relationships. Please, parents, please look after your children's emotions. Love, light, and peace. I hope this helped.